Hello, world. My next guest is an award-winning B2B SaaS-focused marketer, founder, blogger, and educator. With over 15 years experience of B2B and B2C leadership, Adam has worked for some of the biggest and best brands in their respective industries. In his spare time, Adam runs LDN Life, an award-winning blog about London. Please welcome Adam Clarke, Head of Marketing at Zest, to the show. Adam, are you ready to get radically transparent with me?
I am, but I'm going to keep that and that's going to be my my LinkedIn introduction. Much better than I could possibly do.
Fantastic.
I feel slightly embarrassed now.
But, no embarrassed. You know, we can always, there's like that new feature on LinkedIn. I don't know if you've seen it where you can record how to say your name. So I'm happy to have you borrow that intro. I think it will.
That's what I was thinking. Totally over that, maybe use some AI. So, superimpose my face over the top, but you made me sound wonderful. Thank you for inviting me today.
Absolutely. So listen, you have quite the background, and I'm going to just jump right in because I think your background is quite interesting. I know you and I have known each other for quite some time. You've known Oktopost for even longer, and you've known our CEO, I think, for even longer. So the connection just keeps getting greater and greater. But could you give us a brief look into your professional journey and perhaps how you actually found yourself leading the marketing team at Zest?
Yeah, I mean, I could probably spend the entire session talking about my past, but I'll focus mainly on when I moved to London about 12 years ago for love. The love bit didn't work out, but I did fall in love with London, and I fell in love with the opportunities that London gave me to expand and try my craft in different industries. When I first moved to London, I was lucky enough to get a job at a South African wine restaurant, very posh, lots of wine dinners, sat next to the brand manager for Louis Roederer, and drank Cristal the day before I started. It was all very, sort of boy from North England. I was a bit out of my comfort zone, let's say. But we started to do some really interesting things on social media. I was live posting about wine dinners and events and things that we were doing, which kind of involved running up and downstairs and putting a memory card into the computer upstairs and going up and downstairs and trying to think as I'm going up and downstairs what I'm actually going to post at that point. And but Jerry, the owner of the business, cared more about the A board outside, because he was like, that gets more traffic than your bloody social media posts. And he was right, to be fair. A very busy part of London. But my handwriting was terrible. So I had to sort of build relationships internally and, bribe people essentially to sort the A boards out and the chalkboards internally. And that really kind of made omni-channel marketing sort of come to click in my head, that it wasn't just about what I wanted to do, what I thought was exciting and interesting. Actually, there were so many different components to the omni-channel journey, including a chalkboard outside a restaurant. Eventually we upscaled and I got posters printed and we rotated the posters. So I found an easier way around it in the end. But as it happens, I was kind of spotted by some people from EDF Energy, and they were looking for someone to come in, part of the central brand team, to work on London 2012, the Olympics, and little Zingy, the little dancing robot, kind of, some people refer to him as the Orange Poo. You might not have come across him, but it was a big thing over here, sort of 10 years ago. And that's why I'd moved to London, for those opportunities and those experiences. And it was amazing. The contract lasted 10 months and telephone number budgets, all sorts of things, using social media data and working with Weber Shandwick and various other agencies, MIT and stuff like that, to make these stories out of social media and social data 10 years ago. We were kind of cutting edge at the time. And then I ended up at a place called Bunzl, and that was kind of really where my B2B journey kind of really began. Big FTSE 100, 7.8 billion turnover at the time, 20 businesses in the UK, but all over the world as well. And they were just starting to get to grips with what social media might mean for them, for B2B, for social selling, for all these things. And that was, you know, where I met your CEO and found out about Oktopost, because I took on the role of marketing technologist. I actually found a job description for Apple marketing technologist and just found and replaced and changed it to Bunzl, and I did a few of amends and handed it to my director and went, "This is what I want to be." And he was like, "This is brilliant. Did you write this yourself?" And I was like, "I'm a really bad liar." So that it didn't become my job, but became part of my job. So I was, you know, again, looking for best of breed and the new startups in the MarTech world. And there was probably only sort of 2,000-3,000 at that time, perhaps. And now we're sort of hitting 10,000 MarTechs, which is bonkers. I didn't think it would get much bigger then, and it's still growing. 3.5 years later, they kind of pushed me out the door. I didn't want to leave, but I needed to leave for money and to progress my career and things. And I worked at Informa PLC and other big FTSE 100 events. I worked particularly in business intelligence, technology, media, and telecoms. Too much content, too much data, too many things, not enough time. The complete opposite situation that I'd found myself in previously, talking about a B2B distribution company. Won a couple of awards and took on PR and various other amazing things, met some amazing people, learned some amazing things about the industry and enterprise and service providers and all that sort of stuff. But then got a hunger for fintech because we had a unit looking at fintech. So I spent the next 3.5 years after that in fintech. The pandemic happened. I had a midlife crisis, decided to become a management lecturer for a year, teaching customer experience strategy and global strategy and sustainability. And now we're at Zest.
There we go. So in one quick sentence or elevator pitch, what's the value Zest brings to your customers?
There's so much emphasis now on employee experience, having a good employee experience. I think previously it was perhaps something that was kind of, oh, well, you know, it's just something we do on the side. But now, you know, the lack of readily available expertise, trying to find points of difference within organizations. Companies need to up their game with regards to the benefits and the services and the recognition and engagement that they provide internally. And HR managers, directors, departments deserve that as much as the marketers do. So we provide those tools to allow certainly enterprises and large SMEs to be able to do those things effectively. And they've won quite a few awards over the years. And my first job was to enter them into a couple more. So touch wood, no pressure. But yeah, but they've got the culture as well. They've got the things that I was looking for in my next role. It wasn't just about money. It was about what they wanted to achieve and the culture they had internally. So yeah, they're empowering HR teams and employees to get the right benefits, flexible benefits.
Listen, I think Zest is spot on. And what you shared about today and the employee experience, it's something that I think brands, you know, maybe 10, even 5 years ago, we really didn't need to, as brands hiring, we didn't really need to share so much about who we are. We didn't necessarily need to give some grand experience because, you know, the ball was in our court, if you will. And I think in today's, you know, whether you want to call it the great resignation or the great reshuffle, however you want to coin it, right? The script has flipped. And I think, right, the employee really is leading the charge. And just like, as you mentioned earlier, right, omni-channel, we need to be where our customers are. We almost also need to understand where our future and potential employees are, right? So listen, I've had this topic on my mind for a while. And when I was thinking about this episode, you were the first person to come to mind because, right, you and I have always talked marketing teams. And I think whenever you and I would sync up, whether it was like an Eloqua integration or social or whatever it may be, we always found ourselves speaking about internet marketing. And I think over the last few years, we can agree, right? There have been so many more roles to fill in a marketing team, right? And I think many of them now require specialties. So you mentioned you were like running up and down the stairs and, okay, content run up the stairs, let me, type something out. But today it's like, you almost have to be in a marketing team. You're almost like your own team. So if you're a social media strategist, you're the expert on social. If you're SEO, you're the expert, the technical expert on SEO, and your team member who does social maybe knows a little bit about SEO, but you're the expert. Bring in, right, a few other roles, events, whatever it may be. So marketing is this interesting conglomerate of experts that are put together under one umbrella, but it's not like sales where, you have a methodology and everybody can kind of consult on that methodology. So I guess my question to you is in regards to a marketing team and with you over at Zest, it can be really hard to fill. And especially right when it comes to staffing in, whether it's startup, even mid-market, you can really have a team that are a jack of all trades, yet a master of none, right? Yeah. So when you're thinking about building your team, how are you conquering, right? Or how is Zest approaching kind of this phenomenon we're seeing where there's a lot of inexperience or understaffed or perhaps not fully upskilled employees to fit with the era of, MarTech and tech stacks that we need to be adversed in. How are you tackling this?
It's a great question, Jen. At the moment, I'm genuinely not, in the sense that I used to think of myself as a T-shaped marketer. I kind of forced myself, or got forced into becoming a generalist again, but with particular interest in certain areas. And one thing I used to do at Expend was actually, we used to get a lot of paid internships, sort of people who just left university and various things. And one person, she won't mind me mentioning her, a girl called Stella, she just got first in advertising. I wasn't looking for someone to take on advertising particularly, but she just blew my mind at her passion for advertising, the things that she created, her approach to things, the energy that she brought. I was just bowled over, and I was like, you can do that. I can focus on something else. Let's tap into that passion that you have, that thing that you've just spent 3 years of your life learning about. Let's tap into that. Let's do something amazing with that. And I used to do that quite a lot over the years when I've sort of mentored people or had people working for me. What interests you? I'll take on some of the drudgery, because I don't mind so much, because I care more about the impact on the business. Mm-hmm. So right now I'm quite lucky that I've got a few agencies that I've inherited that are working really quite well, and they know the business certainly better than me. So the whole idea of rushing in and sort of getting headcount, I don't have to worry about too much now. Right now, it is something I want to do, and I'll tackle it at that time. I think once I get my feet under the table and we start to explore, I'm already starting to get a feeling that there's a huge sort of hunger to do more content as people. Mm-hmm. I've probably had 10 people in the organization saying, can you help me with LinkedIn? Can we do this? Can we do that? And of course, everyone comes to me. All the directors have come to me with their own list of things. And I'm starting to see these trends. And these trends are about how can we, better promote ourselves within the organization, to promote the organization. People buy from people. So I'm already seeing that sort of trend forming already. So quite naturally, perhaps I need someone in the content side of things to help with that flywheel, because that building that momentum and keeping that momentum for the flywheel of right type of content is hugely valuable. And I'll become a bottleneck, and the agencies will become a bottleneck because I've become a bottleneck, and we just need to be quite mindful and careful of that. So I kind of want to find a 20-year-old me in a way, or 21-year-old me who just loves content, loves making things, loves exploring and trialing things, and isn't afraid to make mistakes from time to time. That's probably the sort of person, as of right now, in a very holistic sense, without having my strategy fully pinned down for the next 6 months. That's probably what, ideal world situation. But ask me again in a couple of months and I might give you
there you go. Anyone listening in, hear what Adam's looking for. And also, we might have to send you a complimentary little staircase, maybe some step stools, just, for the sake of it, so that the next you has a little bit of you to kick off and go up and down some stairs. So listen, I think, something you mentioned, right? You're managing agencies and, you don't want to become a bottleneck. I mean, these are all very common challenges, I would say, in a marketing organization. And I know in a marketing organization in 2020, there's a lot of challenges, curveballs, obstacles. So I have to ask, right? Because you are on Radically Transparent, but what exactly would you say then is keeping you up at night professionally these days?
Making sure I have a 360 view of what the customer is doing and the potential customer is doing. I think that gap in my knowledge between the sector and the business and my marketing skills that's what keeps me up at night, because I absorb so much information and I'm trying to capture as much of it as possible to try and, you can't hit the ground running. It hurts your knees for a start. But aside from that, there is always time that you need to bed in. So you put yourself under your own pressure. And I've just found myself kind of doom scrolling articles at midnight about the industry, about different areas, and trying to understand and just, I could probably read back to you the entire Zest website now. But yeah, those things sort of keep me up at night, because I'm so used to like being the person, pretty much the most generally knowledgeable person about a brand in the room, because that's kind of my job. I'm the brand ambassador. I'm the marketer. I'm the person that can give you data points just like that. If someone asked, it's like, yeah, where did that conversion come from? Yeah, there you go. That's where it came from. Good work. Yeah, nice one. When's that event happening? When's mental health awareness week? All those kind of things. It's like, just be able to pull these dates and data points and all these things. But at the moment, I'm in this world where I'm like, I haven't had an email for half an hour. Is my internet working? It's that new start of a new job thing where you're just like, is everything okay? And especially, I'm very lucky that I've got a hybrid role, so I'm in the office 1 or 2 days a week, so I do get to see people. But outside of that, I'm kind of like, is anyone there? And I know they are, but you're just getting into that rhythm, understanding the business and sort of that sort of thing. So I put myself under pressure, and that's probably what keeps me up at night. But just the advances in technology, I think of myself as very tech savvy, always willing to try new things, dabble with new ideas and technology. I have concerns about data privacy like anybody else, and we all should. But it's moving so quickly. And I think because there's now 10,000 MarTech tools out there, not to mention sales tech and next tech and all those other things that are going on, which ones do you jump in with? There's a really interesting one that I wrote about for MarTech Alliance a while ago that got acquired by LinkedIn to improve their data. Now, it seems like current customers are still allowed to use that tool, but they're not allowing anybody else to buy it. So it's always that confidence thing. Will this company, it's great, but will this company still be around in a year or so? I never had that concern with Oktopost. I always felt like that was a company that was going to go from strength to strength to strength, and that's why I've always been a huge fan. And I've lost count of the amount of times I've recommended Oktopost over the years, not because of you, not because of Daniel or anybody else.
That's some transparency there. You can tell them it's because of us.
So it certainly helps, because the people at Oktopost are wonderful, the ones that I have met. But because your tools solve particular pain points in a particular way that, you know, the market at the time and still now are asking for. And obviously, you know, your employee engagement tools are something I really want to get my hands into, give over to the Zest team and say, right, okay, you've asked for it. Let's work on this together. Let's make it a success. Here's the data points. So I suppose my expectations keep me up at night.
Listen, you're not alone in that. And I think, you know, many of us doom scroll, and I would agree with you, right? It's like, especially if anyone with kids, I know, you know, my little one will get up in the middle of the night and he goes back to sleep pretty easily. And then here I am doom scrolling, doing the same thing, like reading articles, trying to keep up with the industry, what new technology is out there. And you mentioned an interesting one, right? With employee engagement and kind of, and even right, starting a new role and not getting emails in a half an hour. Like, what is the culture, this hybrid culture? How does this all come together? So I'm curious to know, Adam, in your opinion, how do you feel an employee advocacy program can positively impact company culture?
Yeah, you've probably heard all this before, but let's say it again. It's about belonging and making people feel like they feel valued, their voice feels valued. You know, especially internally, there'll be people who are, and I've met several over the past few days, who are about absolutely bowled over by the amount of experience that they've had. Do they necessarily want to be an influencer on LinkedIn or Twitter or elsewhere for the brand or otherwise? Maybe they are, maybe they're not. I've not necessarily had that question. But giving them the opportunity to feel like they can, with confidence, engage with the type of content, the type of messaging that a company does, not necessarily parrot fashion either, adding their own spin, their own thoughts and opinions onto that content, but just greasing those wheels and saying, hey, we're not expecting you to share every single post. We're not expecting you to think of your own things and add KPIs necessarily to how much you share. But here, you love this brand, you love working here, you love what we do. Here's some tools. Here's a way to actually share that externally and grow your own brand, essentially. Yeah. I think there's still a lot of people who are obviously scared that if you invest in people and you make them into people who are active on social media, that you're more likely to lose them. And again, it's always that chicken and egg stuff. But and what does loyalty mean these days? But the amount of value you get from that is infectious. Even if you do lose people look at what's going on in an organization. If people are actively sharing things willingly about the business, about what they're doing, about the problems they're solving, there's some really good examples out there. One of which is a fintech called Primer. And if you haven't checked them out, do. Some of the things that they're doing there with regards to employee engagement and also engagement and allowing their employees to share about their experiences on social media is absolutely on point. It's absolutely brilliant. So I used to work with a couple of people there, and they're doing really well. They're loving it. They're having a great time, but they're working hard as well. And the brand ethos has allowed them to do that. So yeah, I mean, both impressed and jealous of what they're doing there. But hopefully I can bring a small bit of that type of, slightly less startup-y, but still have that energy and that vibe to Zest.
Absolutely. And I love that you threw out the example Primer. Is it Primer?
Yeah.
On LinkedIn. I love when our guests throw out examples, because I think in general in social media, right, there's no playbook. And as part of my doom scrolling, I'm always trying to check out what other brands, whether they're our competitors or not our competitors, are doing on social. So everybody head over to Primer, take a look and get inspired. I want to jump to a moment, because I do know that you are a man of technology, if you will, and you know MarTech quite well. And I think, if I look back on all of our conversations, majority of them have actually been about integrations and, marketing automation platforms. So, it can be a gamble, right? Putting together a MarTech stack that all speaks together and no data is in a silo. If you had no budgetary limitations and could go ahead and build your MarTech stack that dreams are made out of, what would your ideal MarTech stack look like?
It's a good question. I mean, money, no object. I don't like that. Because then I think you just kind of start to get lots of things you perhaps don't need, and you start to fill your bucket. And yeah, I mean,
maybe let me rephrase it, right? Let's take it the opposite direction, right? I recently read a quote where it's like, when your resources are limited, you tend to pick the tools that count. So let's go ahead and say, if you could pick the tools that count because you had the most limited budget, what would those tools be?
I like it. Also a difficult question, but I mean, I'm a huge, back in the day, back in my bundle days, FTSE 100, Marketo were the brands that were absolutely nailing it with regards to practicing what they preach, building a tribe, just doing good things with regards to marketing automation and showing the impact that it can have. I still remember this presentation by the head of B2B marketing for Panasonic, and it was the worst presentation I have ever seen design wise. And he framed it, and that's, you know, it was kind of almost like a pratfall kind of thing, where he kind of just owned it. He was like, normally I'd have somebody else make the presentation for me, but I was in a rush and the person was off sick or on holiday or something. So he's like, you're just having it. This is what you're getting. But it was a brilliant presentation. He didn't really need all that fluff. He just kind of nailed it down and sort of said, you know, we've got 10,000 products and and this is what we're doing in Marketo, and showed the data and everything. I was just like, whoa. I was like, I just want to bottle that, show that to my director and say, we need it, you know? Yeah. It was amazing, absolutely amazing. So back then, Marketo, obviously sort of enterprise level tool. But since I've worked for smaller companies, HubSpot jumps out. HubSpot jumps out every time, because I just think they've done such a good job of giving you enough to do things and make a difference.
Yeah.
But also, they've really focused on these integrations as well, and building out the app, that integrations, their app store and things, and saying, hey, we know we're not right for everything. We know we'll only necessarily get you so far, and then you'll want other things. And they're also best of breed at content for their academy, for building a tribe, for all those things. They just absolutely nailed it. So HubSpot, you know, would always be in my stack as a first consideration. And in fact, because I've got that bias, they've actually created a working group internally to make sure I don't say, let's just have this, because that's not right. It's not about what I want. It's about the business needs. Salesforce, I've always had an interesting relationship with, and Pardot and various things. It's a bit stuffy, to be honest, but it is super useful. So it's kind of sat there. Obviously, Oktopost is in there because I value that. But I'm super interested in Map. Do you know Map?
I don't know Map.
All about customer experience strategy.
Okay.
Strategies, sort of seeing how your customer experience is improving, growing over time. And they've got loads of tools in there. But UX Presser and things like that as well, building those customer journeys and personas is super useful to make sure that you're doing the right things in the right places at the right time. Mm-hmm. Apart from that, I'm a big fan of Webflow. In fact, I'm a big fan of anything that isn't WordPress these days. Though I do still use it myself personally in the enterprise business and enterprise world. There's so many better tools. So I'm a big fan of Webflow, in particular, someone who's perhaps non-technical, who wants to do something different and create an impactful website for a relatively low cost. Webflow is super cool as well. There's loads. Anything around the edges as well that allows, you know, to create short form videos. Oh, yeah. Or, you know, Canva's got to be in there.
You got to put Canva in there, right? Like, are you even a marketer if you're not using Canva today?
I know, right? I know. And I love obviously what they do. I mean, you do end up with a design salad, because you just get distracted by all these designs, and sometimes it's worse. It makes things worse rather than makes things better.
The rabbit hole. That's what I call it. Yeah. The Canva rabbit hole.
yeah. Doom scrolling Canva design. But I mean, my advice for Canva is go in clean, set up your brand, set up your fonts, set up everything up front, and be quite strict with that. But also, I still think you need the likes of Adobe Creative Cloud.
Yeah.
Yes, it's 5 times more expensive than Canva, but it also allows you to do that 10-15% that you can't do perhaps with Canva. I've started doing sort of podcast stuff in auditions and things, which has been super useful.
Yeah.
But also, you know, InDesign, you know, making brochures, people do still like to download content from time in PDFs. So it allows you to do all those things and just add that extra bit of flourish, perhaps, that you wouldn't normally be able to do in Canva, because it has its limits and it kind of sits nicely within that. But it has done a very good job of making itself more and more sticky, I have to say.
Absolutely. Listen, we even integrate. Oktopost actually integrates today with Canva.
What?
Yeah, right. Dropping a bomb on the podcast.
I missed that one.
Yeah. So that's how I think Canva really shot through. I mean, social media managers, marketers, it was something that was requested for quite some time, and it's in our media library now. But again, it's for exactly what we were talking about, right? The amount of images and videos that is required to keep a feed interesting and diversified, right? So right inside of Oktopost, you can open Canva and images go right onto social. So we can jump back, but I'm looking at the time, and our podcast, we're about 30 minutes. So I want to keep true to the podcast tradition, and I can't let you go without asking my favorite question. So I had to save time for the last one. Okay. So Adam, what is something you can tell us about yourself that we cannot find on LinkedIn?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not even sure if it's on there, but it feels so long ago. It kind of fits. It falls outside of my 15-year experience. So I'm going to go with that. And it's stuck in my mind as well, because everyone in the UK has a story about the Queen, where they...
Gosh, and it was recently the Jubilee. So here we go.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm keeping it topical. So back in my university days, I was the only person doing marketing at university who was writing for the student newspaper. I was an oddity. No one could work out why anyone in marketing would want to write content. It was that's how long ago it was. I've still got my marketing book down there. Actually, I can see it in the corner of my eye. And it's got a chapter on digital, I think. Could be big one day, sort of thing. But so I ended up being the newspaper editor for 2 years. Interviewed the likes of Patrick Stewart, who was our vice chancellor, Kings of Leon, Chesney Hawkes. You might not know Chesney Hawkes, but he was the one and only. Yeah. I mean, that's a story in its own right. But lots of bands, lots of famous people, and I used to hustle a lot. I used to sort of pick up the phone and say, "Hey, can I do this? Can I do that?" And it was actually after a heavy night of partying, I went in to finish the newspaper, and I found out just by chance that the Queen was coming to visit. And I was like, well, I've got to change the front page. But what's the details? Like, we can't tell you. It's coming. You'll have to put it in next month. And I was like, no. So I drunkenly rang Buckingham Palace.
No.
Got through to the PR department. They got me to sign an NDA, and we got our local newspaper, which was owned by the Mirror, to also sign an NDA because they did the advertising, the printing. And I wrote this full piece. I was looking for it the other day. I haven't been able to find a copy, actually. So I believe it actually happened. I did this full 2-page kind of front page spread about the Queen coming. And yeah, that was my kind of like Queen moment, where I broke this story.
So Adam, are
local.
you saying that if I want to have the queen on Radically Transparent, that you would be the contact that I can have give Buckingham Palace a call?
No, no, no. If anything, I'm probably blacklisted now. It's like, who was that weird drunk guy? We just gave him an NDA to shut him up. But no, I broke that story in their visit to sunny Yorkshire, to our university and things. But yeah. So that's my little one. But I was super excited and super interested in content all those years ago, sort of 20 years ago. And I saw the power of story and the power of content with regards to marketing all that time. And I just wanted to get good at writing stuff well. And I think I'm about there, after 20 years.
Adam, it's been an absolute blast. Thank you for getting Radically Transparent. I can definitely speak on behalf of myself and Oktopost. We love all of the interesting campaigns and organizations and students that you've been mentoring. We love watching you grow. So thank you for stopping by the Radically Transparent podcast. If anybody wants to continue the conversation, where's the best place to connect?
LinkedIn.
All right, always Adam Clarke on LinkedIn. So go ahead, give him a shout. Adam, thanks for stopping by today. And we can't wait to have you back.
Thanks, Jen. Good to see you. See you soon.
Thanks for tuning in to the Radically Transparent podcast, brought to you by Oktopost, the only social media management and employee advocacy platform architected for B2B. I'm Jennifer Gutman, your host and director of social strategy here at Oktopost. And if you love today's show, we'd love if you subscribe, rate, and give a raving review wherever you get your podcasts. For more discussion on B2B social media marketing, be sure to follow Oktopost on LinkedIn. And of course, to gain access to all our free social media marketing and employee advocacy resources, head on over to our website, www.oktopost.com. Until next time.